Hey, would you look at that? We're back with a brand new season and we've got opening show titles a lot. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Do Lunch. It's good to have you with us. We've done a couple of weeks of best of shows. Now we're back with the live thing. We're going to be doing the same old lunchtime. So we're having a virtual lunch with some great guests, but with a slightly new format. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be problem solving and having such a good time whilst we do it. So at any point during the show, if you have any questions for any of our guests who are on with me, feel free to use the live chat on Periscope or YouTube, and you can also tweet us at digitalbeans UK, and we'll ask the questions towards the end of today's show. Now, don't go anywhere, because we're going to teach you and we're going to show you in Digital Beans 90-second tip at around about 20 past how you can speed up your website with one really, really useful, should we call it a hack? Or it's a bit of a trick, okay? We'll show you how to do that a little bit later on. We're also going to be talking creative content with Stuart Porro, and we're going to be talking to Rebecca a little bit about CVs. So whilst we're talking about our guests, let's introduce them to you properly. Rebecca Pay is with us. She runs Pay for Precision, a proofreading and copywriting business which writes and revamps CVs and resumes for executives in a wide range of industries. And Rebecca, I've got to say, during the pandemic, I've been watching you on LinkedIn, and one of the reasons why I've invited you on the show today is because you always have a smile on your face. Like whenever I see your post, you've always got a great big grin on your face. So how are you feeling today, and how has lockdown life treated you?
It's a weird day today for me, because usually I'm in my camper van working, which is I've been known for now on LinkedIn, but I'm actually back in my bedroom office today because the kids are actually in childcare for the first time together. One's in nursery and one's in school, so it's a bit of a weird one today. I'm just adapting.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to feel when the kids go back to like nursery or schools and stuff. Like, I can't imagine not hearing like Myla screaming downstairs and on a really important client call. I can't imagine that not like that's the new norm now. Surely. We'll move on to a bit more about what you do, Rebecca, and talk a bit about CVs in a second. But also want to quickly introduce you guys to Stuart Porro. He's one of the talented creatives at Dodgems and Floss with a speedy side hobby. Is it fast? Stuart, you have been creating so much content during lockdown. Automotive, you've also been talking a lot with the Dodgems guys and sharing a lot of Instagram stories as well. So tell us a little bit about what lockdown's been like for you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're relatively lucky in the space that we live in professionally and personally, where we can still create. We've had to pivot a little bit, and it's a bit weird, kind of being in my dining room rather than in our lovely studio on Canterbury High Street. But other than that, it's been trying to make the best of it, really. And I think we've been doing okay. So yeah, it's been interesting, but certainly productive. I think is probably the best way to describe at least my lockdown. Yeah.
And it is strange though, isn't it? Because we're all looking to do content, we're all looking to do new things, and we're all looking to do different things, but there's so much out there as well that also nailing that originality and that sort of creative format is quite a difficult thing to do. And now we're coming out of lockdown. Actually, it's going to be interesting to pick your brains as to how we can all adapt to creatively mold our content to a way that fits in with the new COVID world, shall we call it, as everyone's calling it anyway. We'll get through to that in a second. But first, Rebecca, I just want to hit on something that I've been reading. I'm sure, Stuart, you've seen this as well. Reports about unemployment. And today, 600,000 is a figure that's being thrown out. The other day, I read a figure of something like 4.5 million is what the unemployment number could reach. So now's really the time, isn't it, to start thinking about updating that CV just in case the unthinkable happens.
It is. And I think it's interesting, actually, because a lot of people have said, oh, people must be losing their jobs. That's why you're getting loads of clients, because my business has started to really boom in the last 3 months. But actually, it's not. It's a lot of people that are in jobs but aren't sure what the future holds. Or if a job comes up, they want to be ready for it, because online applications move so fast. You need to be ready. You need to be able to apply straight away, because often it's first come, first served. So if you don't have a CV ready, by the time you've sorted it out, the job's probably gone down again. So you need to be ready to go, basically.
And it's been a tough time, hasn't it? I mean, I don't know how many like sort of recruitment people you have on your LinkedIn timeline, but I've got a few. And just looking at that, they've been having a tough time during lockdown because no one is hiring. So for people now, whenever they see that job, as you say, they've got to move quickly.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be a lot of job seekers and not so many jobs, at least for a period of time. So you want to make sure you're in the best possible position, really, to go for those jobs that do come up.
Yep, and react as quickly as you can as well. So talking about CVs, or let's go into someone else's shoes, someone who is maybe on furlough, or they're in a sector where business has been slightly more quiet than normal and they're worrying about their jobs. What tips would you give them when it comes to them sitting down and going, right, I need to have a look at my CV? So what is the first tip you'd give somebody?
One of the tips I would say, especially if you're still in a job and you're not, you're worried about the future and stuff, is start thinking about metrics and stuff you could take note of in your job now, and like the achievements you've made, maybe, sales targets that you've hit and things like that. Actually write down and take a note of those figures now, because obviously once you've lost your job, you might not have access to all the same information. You might not be able to get those figures. And those sort of things are the kind of things that will make you stand out. Your CV will stand out compared to other people's. You can get those facts together now while you've got the time and the space to do it. And so then they're ready to put on your CV.
Yeah, and that is really important as well, to be able to actually say to someone that this is what I've done. Stuart, I know you've gone through hiring processes so many times. If you see a CV and someone's gone, look, this is what I've achieved, and they've got the facts and the figures to sort of back that up, that's so important for an employer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having the opportunity as an employer to understand just a little bit of a background of what someone's managed to do, but also in terms of the kind of the environment in which they've managed to do it. So if someone's in a sales role, for example, tell us a little bit more than you managed to sell 10 units of X. How did you do it? Why did you do it? What was it relevant? You don't have to. Certainly when I'm looking at CVs, and when we're looking at CVs at DNF, we don't want War and Peace, but what have you done? How did you do it? And what was the impact? Is generally a good start for 10.
Yeah, and another one for you, Stuart. I mean, we've seen a lot online. I think Go Agency done it recently with like really mad and creative advertising campaigns to attract people to come and work for them. Like I think they done something where they wanted to bring on a videographer, so they wanted them to create a video to sell themselves for the job. So does stuff like having a video CV as well for you help as an employer, or does seeing their actual work and having that attached initially help as well, or would you say that comes further down the line?
I think particularly, and I can only really speak for the industry that we're in the creative industry, but if you're applying for a role, it's always good to show off what you can do as part of that and what makes you qualified. So if we're going to, if we're looking for someone in a creative design development role, then absolutely, there's going to be, as Rebecca says, a lot of people applying for what could potentially be quite a limited number of roles. So you have to think, what are you going to do to stand above and be looked at ahead of the competition? So if you're going to put, if you've got the capability to put an amazing video together that really shows what you do and how you do it, and gives a little bit of your personality across at the same time, then absolutely, why wouldn't you do it? In my opinion,
yeah, no, and also it could create some great sort of brand awareness as well for that company if they're actually going to go public and go, look, I'm looking to hire someone, here's your task. It's actually quite a cool content piece to be able to go out there and push to people. Rebecca, obviously with all this and the amount of 101 things people could do to get jobs, obviously the CV is the most important. It's the thing that everyone looks over and takes a glance at. So for you, obviously there's so much that can go within that CV. How should people be formatting it? What information should come first? What information should come second? And what would you say is when people put together a CV is on the important sort of scale for that document?
Okay, well, the way I lay out a CV, which I would say is a fairly standard and good way to do it, is having quite a simple, straightforward layout. I don't generally deal with creative people's CVs, to be fair, because a lot of people have to go through the ATS. You might have to go through ATS software, which is applicant tracking software, which can basically scans the CV and picks out keywords. And if you have fancy graphics and text boxes and stuff, it won't be able to read what's actually on there. So the way I lay them out is you have your contact details and name at the top. Then you have a really strong opening summary, which is basically telling people, what you're about and what makes you a bit different, and what's important to you, and how you have an impact on a business when you work there. Then do some key skills. I think it's really important to have a key skills section, because then at a quick glance, you can just see what someone's top 6 main skills are. And recruiters can see immediately if you're a good match for a job. And then do your career history, obviously in reverse order. then do education, any qualification, training and stuff. And then at the end, maybe if you've done any voluntary work or if you've got really interesting interests, but don't bother if you just like going cooking or walking or whatever. It's because that's not interesting.
When I was at school and I was doing my CV for the very first time, I remember the first thing that I wrote down was, I like watching football. I like going on the Xbox, and it really doesn't help, does it? It really doesn't help at all. Unless you're applying for like a footballing influencer role who has some sort of gaming attachment to it. No one wants to know that I like football and I do some gaming, which, by the way, that's completely changed now. My hobby is being a parent because that is all I do aside from work. So when it comes down to the CV, then you mentioned there a bit about hobbies and skills. I've always been sort of whenever I put my CV together, I always wonder when it comes to the qualification sector of that CV, sort of what is the most important qualifications to put down? Because obviously you've got some people who have gone to university and they have a number of qualifications, degrees, and they've also got A-levels and they've got GCSEs. So that could be a massive list. Myself, I only came out of school with a few GCSEs, then went on to college and studied, but then went into the real world of work. So when it comes to qualifications, how stressed should we get about how we list things and what we list?
I think once you've got a decent amount of career and work experience, the qualifications become less important. Obviously, there's certain sectors where you have to have certain qualifications, but it's probably important once you've got a few years behind you to ditch things like your GCSEs and A-levels off of there, because are they really adding any value? Does it matter if you've got a maths GCSE? If you're, now a CEO of a company, or, because I deal with like a head of finance or a director of IT or something, and some of them still have their GCSEs on there, I'll be honest. And that's one of the first things I take off. So I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually matter what you got for your GCSEs. I think some people are still quite proud they got A's. I got 10 A's for mine, so I still like to harp on about it. But it's kind of embarrassing now at my age, so probably should just let it go.
Let it go, like Frozen. Let it go. I'll tell you what, guys, there's quite a few people watching now. So if you've got any questions on CVs, please feel free to put them into the YouTube chat or tweet us at digitalbeans UK. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well, so you never miss a show. And obviously, we'll chop up some of the stuff that we're talking about, so you can watch it a bit more simple when it comes to some great tips and ideas when it comes to that CV. I think the final question from me, Rebecca, on CVs in this part is so. You're creating a CV. We've spoken about the structure. We've spoken about it. And you hit on there about if it's going into an ATS system, graphics and stuff don't matter. But how important is it to find a good template? Or should you look at it more of a piece of copy than some sort of visual representation?
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be readable. You need to have a decent size font, like, between size 10 and 12, and one of the standard fonts, so that people can like physically read it on a screen, or even it's printed. But it's not so much about what it looks like, as long as it's laid out in a good way, as much as the content, because it is about what the content is telling them, not about whether it looks fancy and amazing. I think there was a really weird phase of people printing CVs on coloured paper and stuff like that, years ago. It's like, or get noticed in the pile of CVs. But I think those days are a bit behind us now. And I think now, it is all about what the content is, and keeping it to 2 pages as well. Sometimes people, will have like 6-page CVs that they've just waffled on, and no one's ever going to read all that. So it's literally a waste of time. And then the good information just gets lost amongst all the waffle.
I've actually got a good question there on the 2 pages. Does a cover letter count as part of your CV?
I would say no, because a lot of places don't even want a cover letter now. If you're doing an online application, quite often they'll ask you for one if you need one. But I would say no, it doesn't count.
There we go. Brilliant. There's my question answered. If you've got one, put it in the chat box and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. We'll come back to you in a second, Rebecca. First of all, Stuart, we spoke about this before we went live. When was the last time you done a CV?
It was a long time ago. It was, anything that was in there is probably not massively relevant to the world that I live in now. Although, as Rebecca says, there are certain qualifications that I'm very proud of. Cycling proficiency, I'm very happy with that one. That was hard fought. But yeah, I think it's worth keeping it up to date. It's been a little while. I was younger, so maybe in the CV world, I'm still like 25. maybe that's kind of.
I've put on there about my health and safety certificate, and I can't even remember what like I need to do now to like do CPR or anything like that. So I don't know why that's still on my CV. Maybe I need to update that. But yeah, I do try to keep my CV updated, especially if like we were talking about achievements in the workplace and sort of if we've done something that's great. I like to sort of just keep that updated, because then, you know, if the unthinkable ever happens, I don't have to come back to it and go, oh, I can't remember like what I done then, and I can't remember what figures and stats I got from it. So yeah, definitely keep your CV updated. And again, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat. But Rebecca hit a little bit on content there within a CV, and I think it's also important right now, if you are on LinkedIn, if you run a business, that you have got to be looking at how you adapt your content post-COVID. So what better person to get on than Stuart, and who's one of the members of the teams at Dodgems, founder of Visit Fast. Stuart, first of all, how are the teams at Dodgems and Floss? Because I haven't seen you guys in ages. And how has lockdown been? Because I know you guys, if you follow Dodgems and Floss on Instagram, you'll see firsthand that you guys live and breathe creativity. And you always post up Instagram stories of you guys like in a huddle discussing like new client work and using whiteboards and like digital screens to look at what you do for clients. So how's all like adapting all that been virtually over lockdown?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, they're all very well.
Good.
They're still, I think the Bants is alive and well, which is always nice. But yeah, it's completely true. We have a very creative way of helping clients, and that means that we all get together, whether it's a design or development project. We all pitch in effectively, because you never know who's going to have the creative idea that will change what we can deliver for the client. And traditionally, that is done with all of us in or outside of a pub or at the studio, and having a right good chat about it. We've had to change it, but we still have our catch up every single morning. The beautiful world of the internet means that we can catch up regularly about whatever's going on. We still have a lot of creative projects and development projects that are going on that haven't stopped. So it's just been a way of trying to find a way around that. And we've come up with some pretty innovative ways of doing that in the last 10 to 12 weeks that initially we thought were a bit crazy, but they work. So even delivering things to people's houses and offices that we ordinarily would have done in the studio, we've come and done that. So yeah, it's as business as usual as we can make it without all physically being in the same room.
And tell us a bit about Is It Fast as well, because obviously that's something that we would have seen a lot on your timeline during lockdown. You've created a home studio. You've been putting out a lot of content. I know you've been getting some great traction on that content as well that you've been really, really proud of. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and a bit about Is It Fast.
Yeah. So Is It Fast is really just a service or a more an entertainment streaming service, I guess, all around one of my passions, which is cars and motorsport. So over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been something that's been gently growing, just as a hobby, really, to entertain my need for petrol. But as things have dried up, I guess, a little bit over the last 12 weeks, usually I do a lot of content with the guys at the studio to promote the services that we do at Dodgems and Floss. It was a good opportunity to stretch my legs and really use Is It Fast to experiment a little bit about what could be done, where we haven't got any clients, we haven't got anybody really that if we mess up, it's on their tab, if you will. So we moved into this house probably 3 or 4 weeks before lockdown, which was pretty lucky. And we put together a studio and turned Is It Fast into a little bit of petrol-driven respite for fans of motorsport, which obviously hasn't been happening, and thankfully is due to start really, really soon again. But for everybody that was gearing up for the motorsport season and ready for big car launches and all that kind of thing, I thought, well, why can't I just set up my lights in the studio and put a backdrop in, and I'll just bring people content about cars without being able to go out and film cars, which is a bit of a challenge. But yes, and it's gone absolutely crazy. People have lapped it up. So yeah, it's been lucky. And the things that I learned from that safe space, I can then transfer over to clients on the Dodgems and Floss side. So everybody wins, really.
Yeah, I think it's quite important to do that. And for us, it's been great to be able to do some live streaming and we've done your local delivery as well, to have a look at that multi-site space and to have a look at what we can do for smaller businesses on an e-commerce scale. Like it's really good to learn. Rebecca, I know you post quite a bit on LinkedIn, and you've been doing some LinkedIn videos as well during lockdown. So how have you found that interaction, and how have you found creating that content during a pandemic?
I think it was really hard the first few weeks, especially. It was like, what do you say? Like, what do you talk about? It was all a bit doom and gloom. It was quite scary, I guess. A lot of people were really, really scared. So I think my content's been a bit of a mix, but generally tried to keep it really upbeat. Like I've done the odd bit that's been quite honest. You know, if I've had a really hard time or I felt really scared about something, I've kind of expressed that because I think people relate to that quite well. If you are genuinely having a hard time, because I think everyone was kind of having a hard time at the same time. But generally speaking, I've tried to keep it really upbeat. And like you were saying, trying to smile and everything or whatever, because I think, you know, one of my branding things, I talk about ice cream a bit too much because I like eating ice cream. But I think it's important to lighten the mood, because people don't want to talk about the doom and gloom all the time. Like I stopped watching the news a couple of months ago now, basically. Like I obviously see the odd headline, but because the news was just bringing us all down. I think it was just stressing everyone out. We didn't even know what to believe. So, you know, when you go on to LinkedIn, yes, you want some business content, but you want to just be cheered up a bit, I think. And, you know, you want to be able to smile about things and chat to people that have got similar views to you and stuff. So I tend to often just post stuff that comes into my head on that day, to be honest. I would love to say I planned it all out weeks in advance, but I don't.
But you don't need to, and I think that's what's great. Like you actually don't need to. I was just thinking then, actually, we should start up. Is it ice cream between the three of us? Then we can like go around trying ice cream. Like I think we've got that done. The Is It group is coming soon. But no, that's what's the joy of it is you don't have to. And Stuart, I think that leads me on to my next question perfectly when it comes to adapting your content creatively, during lockdown. Like for instance, when we've done our first live show 8 weeks ago, it didn't have as much prep go into it as this one did. Like, and the way we done the show was completely different. It had me and Jack, and we was doing loads of different features over an hour. Now we think it's better to do half an hour and focus it more on 3 topics potentially that people are going to be able to learn and join in a conversation about. So how would you say is the best way to adapt to your content? And like Rebecca said there, it doesn't have to be overthought, does it?
No, you're absolutely right. And people that know me well and work with me professionally will tell you that I talk a lot about prep and a lot about getting ready. And I'm gonna swing left and right a little bit, but you know the key to good content is honesty, and it can also be preparation. But then there's also the element of actually you have to just do it. Yeah. You know, and the thing about content as a term is that a lot of people that certainly I speak to, they automatically think about this. They think about video, or they think about live. And although that's a great medium of speaking to people, you can see gestures, you can see hands and faces and expressions, and that's great. But not everybody's comfortable doing it like this. So, you know, when we talk about content in the lockdown space or after, just find something that you're comfortable doing, either as a business or as an individual. So if writing's more your thing, great. If audio's more your thing, great. If video, perfect. You know, a combination of all of it. But when it comes to certainly producing content, just have really 1 or 2 things ready. And the first one is be prepared to be honest. You can be prepared, but you can be honest. But also have some sort of goal in mind, particularly when you're talking about your business. So it doesn't have to be a big one. It can't, you know, it can be as simple as brand awareness. You know, I'm just going to start doing this so that more people know who I am and what I do, and that's perfectly fine. But preparedness to do something is usually a really strong start.
Someone used to say to me, be prepared to fail with your content. And as much as I sort of slightly agree with that, what I disagree with is knee-jerkingly pulling the plug on something. You've got to give something time. Like you have to give it its own space, and you have to give it its own platform to be able to do good. And like you said there, Stuart, honesty content, like content that's honest, it comes across so much better to the end user as well. Like you don't, you know, like this is just a conversation between 3 people. Like, you know, and it's something that we've been able to set up relatively easily. we've been able to use the technology to our advantage, and we're talking about stuff we feel passionate in. And you know what we wouldn't do now is have a conversation about stuff that we know nothing about. So this is an honest conversation that is great. But talking about stuff that we might not know much about, Stuart, the automotive world. You might have is it fast, but I just want to quickly hit on how does that look at the moment. So when it comes to you getting back into cars and it comes to the sale of cars, how does that look at the moment, and how is that going to look post pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to that coin. At the moment, I'll be honest, it looks pretty bleak as an industry. But actually, when you dig deeper, I think all that's happened over the last 10, 12 weeks is it has accelerated what has been a downturn in the way that people consume and go and buy their cars. I think there's a lot of choice out there in the market, but the one thing that hasn't changed in the car world is the way that people purchase their car. So the traditional model was very much alive, but with the negative of certainly registrations are down 90% compared to the same time last year, which you can understand. I think it's a great catalyst for change. So the dealer networks and manufacturers themselves have been forced to change the way that they, both the way they treat their clients, so the way that you are treated when you go through the process, and most importantly in the car world, how you're treated once you've bought your car. That hasn't always been the best, depending on the mark that you buy. But it has certainly accelerated how you will buy your car in the future, and whether you will buy your car at all. Mm-hmm. So, you know, would you put your money into a depreciating asset if someone told you that was something that you'd be doing? Well, you probably wouldn't. But people for years have bought cars that the minute you drive it off the forecourt will lose a third of its value. So you'll see lease deals becoming much easier to access and easier to understand, hopefully. But also the way in which you construct your car, build your car, get your car delivered to your door, something that Hyundai have been doing for a while, for example. It's definitely been a catalyst for quite a lot of change. And so I think that people like me, hopefully, will become even more important. You know, before you go out and buy something, you want to watch a review on it, or you want to understand the process or something like that. So once again, content is going to be, and storytelling will come to the fore even more. So the last 12 weeks, I've not managed to get into a car. Obviously, a lot of the reviews that we had planned with Porsche and BMW and stuff haven't happened because no one's been there to give us the cars. But yeah, in fact, we're filming something quite fun this week that is very entertaining and informative. So yeah, that'll be, you just find ways around it. I actually want to come back, Stuart, and ask you a question in a second, a little bit about online consuming when it comes to cars. But first, just quickly, Rebecca, on what Stuart was saying there in terms of the consumer behaviour and sort of how that's going to change now in showrooms. This does sort of mould into the worrying unemployment rates, doesn't it? With fewer people potentially visiting showrooms, visiting stores. I mean, it's just, we don't know what the future holds, do we?
No, and I think obviously a car's a pretty big purchase, isn't it? It's probably second only to buying a house, and you're not going to go out and spend a lot of money on a new car if you're not 100% sure about your job and the future of your job. And I think there is so much uncertainty at the moment that people are still spending in places like Primark, apparently, but generally on big purchases, I think people are going to be a lot more cautious for some time, because I think, you know, you're going to hold on to your pennies at the moment.
And would you say, no matter what industry you're in, what would your last piece of, as someone who writes CVs and obviously has sort of worked with people who are either moving jobs or unemployed, what would your last bit of advice be to people out there who might have a slight worry about where they're going to be working in the next 2-3 months?
Just think about, when you're writing your CV, about the impact that you will have on a business, not just about what you want. Because obviously it's important to know what you want, but on a CV, someone just wants to read about what impact you have on their business. They're a little bit selfish in that way, if you think about it. They want to know what happens when they hire you, what you will do for them. So trying to word it in that way, think about that style of it, rather than this is what I want to work somewhere like that.
Yeah, no, and that's a good bit of advice. And Stuart, sorry, just quickly, Roddy, over to you. I just want to quickly ask, obviously this links in with Is It Fast and it links in with Dodgems. When it comes down to that consumer behaviour and people having to do more online, do you think this is the start of a change? Amazon have wanted this change for ages, where more people are consuming products online instead of in stores. Do you think that cycle's happening now?
I genuinely do. I think we've been a little bit behind, say, for example, the US and Japan and places like that. But I think this has, again, been the catalyst for that acceleration. I think we're going to see in the next 3, 6, 12 months, we're going to see businesses that some of us have never heard of absolutely flourish because they're going to jump on the change pretty quick. And then equally, I think we're going to see some big players really struggle. And we started to see that with people like Toys R Us probably a few years ago now, not quite keeping up. But I think this is really going to prove quite a major catalyst for change. But as long as businesses think about their consumers and they think about how can we get products to those consumers as quickly and easily as possible, then I think we'll all be in for a pretty positive rise.
Fingers crossed. Let's hope so. Stuart and Rebecca, thank you for coming on. Please don't go anywhere yet, though, because we've got to do the quick fire round. And I'm going to explain that in a second. Whilst you're watching now, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. Ben Linden, one of our account managers, is going to be on in a second with a really, really handy tip on how you can speed up your website. But before we do that, I need to try this because actually I was slightly unprepared for this show. I had to rush to the office and quickly pick up this microphone because I wanted to sound a bit more crisp, which means I didn't get round to editing a video that I needed to put in the background now whilst we did a quick fire round. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and share my screen on the timer video. So hopefully now you can just see there we go. Look, yes, you can see it. Now I must put a bit of context into this. So what we want to do is we want to do a 90-second quick fire round where we're just going to ask, I guess, really, really random questions on every show. I was going to edit these questions a little bit, but Rebecca sent me a message last night that said, I'm slightly confused. Your quickfire question looks like questions you'd ask kids. And I was like, number one, great feedback. Number two, I'm actually just going to keep those questions now because Rebecca clearly wants to answer them. So I'm going to put 90 seconds on the clock. I'm going to ask a question. Stuart, I want you to answer first. Then Rebecca, you answer second, but you've got to be as quick as possible. We're going to try and get in as many questions as we can in 90 seconds. And some might mean you have to move slightly and sort of show us, etc. So are we ready? Let's kick off the quick fire round. I'm going to mute this just in case because I don't know how loud it's going to be. Right. So 3, 2, 1. Again, start with Stuart, then on to Rebecca. Go. Name the first word that comes to mind. Oh, Mozzarella, we like him. Now.
Pineapple.
Ice cream.
If you had to buy something for the person above you, so Rebecca for Stuart, Stuart for Rebecca, what would you buy them, Stuart?
A bit more time so they can do backgrounds for things like this.
Rebecca? That was something you cut out, but I've got a feeling that was something good. Show us something that's on your desk in front of you. What have you got in front of you? Sunglasses.
Always.
Oh, has Rebecca got something? She's having a look. She's trying to reach it. Oh, water bottle. Perfect. Tell us about the last dream you remember having, Stuart. This could go on.
It could. I was fixing up a hose pipe in the garden and it wasn't going particularly well.
What a dream, Rebecca. Oh, Rebecca, I think you've muted yourself. I can't hear you. You've gone muted. Oh, I can't hear.
Oh, I was trapped in a dungeon in my last dream.
Oh, well, great. What's the most embarrassing thing that happened to you in a classroom, Stuart?
Oh, I had a drink and my classmate made a joke and it all came flying out of my nose because I didn't want to make a massive scene. So that was pretty fun.
Rebecca?
I think it was when the PE teacher came in and my friend decided to tell him that I fancied him, and I was about 12 and I hid under the desk. I was absolutely mortified.
Oh, what a story to end on.
Oh, Mr. Edwards.
Sorry, and Rebecca, we did miss. I've got to say, we missed what you said you'd buy Stuart.
Oh, a little model car. It seems to be
model
car. So.
That was really thoughtful. Stuart said he'd buy you more time. I mean,
he thought he was talking about you, though. That's why.
Potentially, yeah, because this is quite bad, isn't it? Thank you so much, guys, for coming on. I really appreciate you being on the first season, and it was great to chat a bit about content with you, Stuart, and Rebecca about CVs. Stuart, where can people find you?
Well, pretty much everywhere. But if you look for us at Dodgems and Floss on LinkedIn or on your favourite browser, or if you're looking for something more car related, then if you Google "Is It Fast," or if you go onto Facebook or YouTube and again look for "Is It Fast," you will see my face and 4 wheels. Definitely go check it out. And Rebecca, what about you? Where can people find you?
My business is called Pay for Precision, but I'm obviously as Rebecca Pay as well. LinkedIn is the main place, but I'm obviously on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Amazing. Well, Rebecca, Stuart, thanks again for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. And now it's time to bring on someone who we are all familiar with. He's back in the second season. It's your boy, account manager here at Digital Beans. Ben Linden is with us, and it's time for another 90-second tip. I'm looking forward to this one today. So obviously you lead our web development and our WordPress development. So you know a thing or two about speeding up websites.
Definitely.
What are we doing today?
So today is going to be showing you how to sort of have images that really won't slow down the site. So we're going to show you how to sort of resize them correctly and also compress them so that they're just as small as possible.
Two quick questions. Number one, why is it important to make sure that those pictures are as compressed as possible without losing the quality? But also two, sort of when it comes to this, could images really play that big a part in your website speed?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, especially from a mobile, you know, when people are viewing on like 4G or stuff, obviously the page speed is reliant on how much the browser actually has to download. So, you know, text is all very simple, but when it comes to images, for you to see that image, it has to download. So, you know, if you've got a crazy big image on there that's 4 meg, then obviously, the site's not going to load very fast. And it's particularly important if you've got quite a few images on a page. So an example I'm going to show you is going to be like a meet the team page where you've got, you know, 10 images of all your staff. It's very important that we obviously compress them, but still keep that same quality. And
everyone loves a fast website, right? We all love a fast
website.
Check out the speed of your website and see if you can improve it by doing what Ben's just about to show you. So Ben, do you want to share the screen with me? So what we're going to do is we're going to put 90 seconds on the clock, a bit more conventionally than I just done with Stuart and Rebecca. I'm going to do it on my phone this time. And then what we're going to do is we are going to see if Ben can complete this 90-second tip in 90 seconds. And you guys can check it out. You'll be able to watch it back later. So make sure you hit subscribe as well. And there we are. And there is our website. Cool. Right. So I'm going to put 90 seconds on the clock, Ben. And your time starts now.
Okay, cool. So as I was saying, a good example is always going to be the Meet the Team page where you've got quite a few images. So the first thing here is obviously these are quite small images. We don't need to be, you know, uploading the original size that they were. That was probably around 4,000 pixels by 4,000. So you want to figure out obviously how big it is. And then once you've got the original, obviously you can use Photoshop or any photo editing software you have, but if you don't have any, this is the best website that just doesn't have any ads or any annoying stuff to go through. So the first step is going to be to resize the image. So I've got this original already here. So we're looking at 768 by 768, which is going to be, obviously way larger than it actually needs to be on here. So we've uploaded the image here. You don't need to worry about any of all this. The only thing you want to do is just resize the image. So I've worked out that it needs to be 255 by 255. So just going to select that there, hit resize image, download the image, and then we're going to go over to this amazing website that compresses your images. Got a nice little panda there.
Love
so
a
you
panda.
Downloaded your image, drag it in there. So it was already quite small. 44 kilobytes is quite small already, but you know, it can always be better. So this particular software really doesn't affect the quality at all, but has still managed to reduce the size by 41%. So once you've downloaded that, you've then got the size that it should be, and as you can see, the quality is exactly the same.
And it's no different, and that's how simple it is. And you've halved the size of
and that's tiny. So that there will take milliseconds for your phone or your browser to download and just make those websites appear almost straight away.
Look at that, mate! You're well in time. Look at that. There's the alarm. Stop. That was 90 seconds. So those two websites again. Sorry. So get the image, take it over to resizeimage.net.
Yeah, resizeimage.net, and then tiny PNG.
And then that's how you can completely slash your file sizes in more than half.
Yeah, and you got a little happy panda there when he's done a good job.
And can I ask one question? It's a layman question, so I do apologize for it. Does website speed have any effect when it comes to Google rankings or it comes to optimization?
Yeah, definitely. So even more so that we're living in the mobile world where more people search on Google through mobile than desktop. So yeah, having a fast website, particularly on mobile, is just it's hugely beneficial.
And especially if you've got an e-commerce store with loads of products as well, like
yeah,
features down, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think e-commerce stores benefit the most, 100% from having a quicker store, conversions wise. But yeah, the site speed is a huge factor when it comes to ranking as well. It's way up there.
Brilliant, Ben. Thank you for that. Thank you for the 9-second tip. And I believe Pip is on Thursday, which means it's probably going to be a 150-second tip. But we'll
a nice, beautiful spreadsheet too, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably. We'll see what happens then. Ben, thank you for coming on, mate. We'll see you again soon.
No worries, mate.
Thank you again to my guests, Stuart and Rebecca. Brilliant. Go and check them out on LinkedIn if you can. We'll put their links in the description as well a little bit later on. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We will be back on Thursday with 2 more great guests. We've got Ryan Briggs, who's a former footballer. He also now works in the finance world, but also is the sponsorship director at Kings Hill Football Club. We talk about grassroots and sports coming back. And we've also got Michael Jackson, who is a CEO of a elite sports branding company that looks for opportunities for sports clubs to be able to further their marketing opportunities. He will be on this show on Thursday. Until then, Thursday midday, I'll speak to you soon, and make sure you hit subscribe. Bye, guys.